Welcome everyone at the monthly Q&A with indie developer. Next to me is Edward Lee, and he developed Stranger World, an RTS mobile phone game. Please, Edward, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Adina. So I'm Edward Lee. I am the co-founder of Twitchy Finger Limited. We are a indie game developer and publisher based in Hong Kong. And I'm also a game producer and a senior product director at Kingsoft Season Games. It's also a game publisher and developer that's based out of China.
So you're kind of working for a long time in the game industry, right?
For mobile games, I've been doing it since 2014. So I founded my game studio in 2014, and we started doing a lot of small indie casual games, and eventually we started scaling up and made a little bit more mid-core games. Mm-hmm. So up to now, we've produced 7 titles in the last probably like 7 years now. So approximately one per year.
That's nice.
Yeah, we started with a small team of like 5 people, and now we're at around 12 right now. So, we kind of, doubled up a little bit. Yeah. Actually, let me introduce the game a little bit just to put into perspective. So Strange World is like a post-apocalyptic RTS game, single player, mainly focused on a single player aspect of it, where you can control up to 4 unique characters, and each character has their own skill sets. Half the game is RTS type of game, and we mixed it. It's kind of a hybrid genre. We added some survival elements, such as resource collecting and also crafting items, weapons, different type of recipes you can explore. So it's a combination of a hybrid RTS survival game.
That's nice. So how did you came with the idea to develop Strange World?
So Strange World, it's quite a unique story behind it. So we've been making games for several years, from our own indie label until we caught the eye of Kingsoft Season Games, which is a listed company based in China. So, it's funny because, they're a big company. They're one of the major publishers in China. So we have Tencent, which everyone knows, and there's NetEase. Then you got other companies, and Kingsoft is one of them. So the parent company is Kingsoft, and we're under the games division called Season Games. So how that happened was, I think we met some of the Season Games people during one of the game conferences. And I've known some of the guys for a while, some of the people working there, and they were asking, they're a listed company in Hong Kong. It's a publicly traded company. And they're saying like, oh, are you interested in having your studio funded or acquisition or anything, or publishing? And at first we're like, we're a small team, right? So and Season Games has been known for making very hardcore MMORPGs, mainly for the Chinese market in the mainland China. So for us, we don't really deal with the Chinese market, and we mainly do games that are on overseas or global. And for us, it was a unique experience. And then we thought about it, and then we met with the CEO of the company, and one of the first questions I asked was like, why us, right? We're an indie team. There's plenty of very good indie teams out there, and you guys are a big company. You guys probably make more money in a week than what we make in a year. So why get involved with such a small team? And the answer was, even, if you're a big publisher, you're always trying to look for something that's new, that can bring, different value to the company or to the portfolio. And for them, they're mainly a Chinese publisher, and they actually want to explore overseas and expand into the international market. And, starting with the indie team, it's a good way of testing the waters, or also, broaden what they have. Because, with a big publisher, they always have a lot of different teams there making assortment of different games. So for them, what we provide is a fresh take, a new blood, just a different perspective from our years of development. So what happened was Strange World is actually our first co-produced game, where it's funded by Kingsoft, but it's completely, we have free reign, we have complete control of what we can do with the game and what the target market is. So they've been pretty, open and very, willing to let us experiment with, within the confines of what we usually do. So when we got to Strange World, we're like, oh, let's make something that's, a little bit different than what we traditionally make, from our, within Twitchy Finger.
Wow, that's an interesting story. I mean, also because
Yeah.
you are saying that normally you focus on the Western market. So is this
Yes,
game
yes.
kind of focused more on Chinese market, or is it like kind of focused on like as the Western markets with like the Chinese market in it? How do we need to see that?
So when we were conceiving the game, one thing we told Kingsoft was, we don't know how to make a very Chinese MMORPG that's the typical season games portfolio. What we can do though is leverage off of our experience from the overseas market and doing different indie games in different genres. And if that works, then we can start making the game. And they were open with it. And it's one of their, it's not their first, but it's one of their first batch of games under their global publishing department.
Wow, so that's really cool. I mean, I also noticed, I noticed there are a lot of RTS on the mobile phone, right? It's kind of a big market out there. So what do you think makes Strange Worlds very unique?
So when we developed the game, RTS hasn't always been great on the mobile experience because, RTS traditionally has been a very PC-oriented genre. You're thinking StarCraft or the early Warcraft, Age of Empires, where you're dealing with a lot of you got the macro game, but then you also a lot of micro managements that you're doing with the resources. So for us, we really thought this type of RTS was very fun. The throwback to the more old school type of RTS, and we really wanted to focus on the single player aspect of it. It's kind of like playing the StarCraft or the Warcraft type of custom maps and the campaign modes, and that was something that we really wanted to achieve. So within the mobile sphere, one of the first thing that we dealt with was how can we translate that type of experience from a traditional very PC type of game genre and into the mobile sphere. And and we adapted according to what works on PC and trying to port it over to a smaller device where it's touchscreen based. So I think the end result is I think we did quite a unique game where it's still a throwback or a homage to the traditional PC type of RTS, but with modern RTS, modern mobile game type of mechanics.
Yeah, as I noticed, like suddenly you really said like, oh, it's single player, and most mobile phone games are focused on like multiplayer. But to be honest, I played it and I didn't miss it at all. So I think you really succeed in that because
Thank you.
I think it's really cool. I also was wondering because I like to ask developers like, do you still play the game by yourself, or did you really like put so much effort in making it that you don't want to touch it anymore? How is it with you?
So with this game, we took a unique approach. I'm getting a little bit more into the development phase of the discussion. So whenever you make a game, you do, as you said, you make it so much. You're looking at it every single day, and often you spend even months to years of development into the game. So by the time it's out, you're probably sick of it. So what we do in our team is, we're a small team. It's a 7-people team that made this game. So what we did was we kind of split the phases up. So I'm one of the producers for the game, and then we got another producer. I have a co-producer that also manages the game too. So what we do is during one phase of the game, I would get a little bit more involved in it, say like the story aspect of it, the script writing, but then when it got to the the game mechanics, some of the controls, I leave that to my other producer. So we kind of each take a different part of the production phase. So one person will be stepping back a little bit. So that'll give us a fresh eyes and fresh take on it. So I think there was a time where a good month I have it. I'm like, don't show me the game. You guys work on it. Don't show me. Just I know what's going on. I know the timeline. I know what modules, what part we need to finish. But give me like a month, of me not looking at the game as quite as often. Then when they have a build ready, I would play it, and my take would be a lot more different than our other our team. So I can point out, all right.
I really like this because basically this is really safe. Sometimes when you're working on something, then you get so much into it. Well, if you like go back of it, like take some fresh time to think about it, then you have a fresh eye. So I think that's quite smart to also like playtest the game on different kind of mindsets.
Yes. So, and when I play it, after like I haven't touched it in a month, I would tell my team, all right, just circle around, watch me play, and often they'll see things that they did not expect. Because they know where exactly everything is, right? Sometimes I don't quite know where the details are, and I'm trying to tap here, I'm pressing this, and they see it and they write down the notes. All right, so from a player's perspective, this doesn't happen. We're expecting this, but they don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
After that, I explain. They ask me, "Oh, why did you do this?" I'm like, "Oh, because I thought I can click this, but end up it wasn't. It's maybe I might be using the control mechanics from a previous build, and then now they switched it up without telling me. Then for me, it's like, oh, this is all new, right? So then I got to play through it and learn it on the go, which gives fresh perspective for me and the team as well. So we've done a lot of this type of at least one side might not touch the game for maybe a week or 2 weeks, and so we can gauge how our progress is and improve on the overall experience before we get to the beta testing.
I think that's such a good advice for small indie teams who don't have like the money to have to pay playtesters, so that you kind of playtest by yourselves, but like having like fresh mindset. I think it's really good. It's very smart.
Yeah. Well, we do have a luxury, so we're not like a 2-man team or 3-man team where we have everyone working on it at the same time. We do have different aspects of the game where we can work on. So when one side has been working on the UI or something, then versus the pathfinding, then when we get to that, we can flip over and have other guys play, or our artist will play it because he does the art, but he doesn't really play the game, right? Like at that moment. So we try to stagger the amount of each build, who gets to play it and who doesn't, just to put a little bit of distance between ourselves and the product itself.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I also noticed that there are a lot of modes, and like some are like opening up at some days. I was just wondering, like, which mode do you like the most?
So as you mentioned, we do have quite a lot of modes and different like event modes. We started with just a single player campaign mode first, and some and when we did the beta testing on Google Play Early Access, we were very fortunate to get a lot of organics. So we have around 500,000 testers by the end of our beta test, which is fantastic. And those are all organic. We didn't do any type of ad buys, user acquisition, so we're very blessed by that. And the community has been very good at giving us a lot of feedback. And one of the feedback was, oh, can we do an endless mode where we try to survive and craft and protect our base as long as possible, And I'm like, that's a great idea. And then we played with that and found out, and then we threw that out in beta testing, and it was quite well received. Currently, the mode isn't out yet, so we're still trying to tweak it. Take some of the feedback we have, and eventually I think we'll launch this within sometime this year. We're unlocking different contents, characters, modes at different times during this over the course of this year.
Yeah, I think it's really good to hear that you really listen to like the feedback from your users and even think, oh, maybe I just add new modes in it. Like that's really cool. Like it's basically modding in itself. Basically, they ask, I want a mod, I want a DLC, please add it.
Yeah.
You guys.
So my favorite mode, I think it's still probably the campaign mode, the main campaign, because it's a mixture of a lot of different things. We try to vary it out. At the start, it's quite right at the start, we're trying to walk you through it, so not everyone might be familiar with RTS, and and control scheme for RTS is a little bit more difficult, right? Because you're controlling multiple different units. So we try to ease our players in, and I think the campaign mode is quite fun. You have the story to it, and then there's different different type of stages that you can do. Yeah.
So what was there first, like the story or the game mechanics? Like how did that came to?
It started with the story first. So we were fortunate enough that Kingsoft gave us enough funding for us to basically kind of do what we wanted to do and try things we haven't tried before. So we started brainstorming and we really liked this the whole post-apocalyptic type of world. And we grew up playing a lot of the RTS games from PC, so we kind of want to replicate that, right? So a lot of ideas, thinking what the story is, who the protagonist is, who the antagonist is, if there's a twist, how do we incorporate a twist into the story? And from that, we moved on to, okay, how can we, now we have this story, now how do we bring that and realize it to a mobile device? Because that's a challenge, right? So, the device, the specs of it, can it run on a low-end machine? And if you're using a small screen, how does that work? So, the process of working through the troubles, the different, obstacles of making the game came in. Yeah.
Yeah, like because I feel when I play it, that's kind of a combination between XCOM and Fallout. Like, were your inspirational games for it? Or
so we started off with because it's two different genres, right? We had the survival. Yeah. By then there was, we took a lot of inspiration from the PC RTS games for sure. And then we saw what's out there. And by then there was, I think, like Last Day on Earth was one of the things we looked at for reference. The survival element, we took, some of the crafting, we try to see if we can incorporate something from Minecraft, but that's quite robust though. So it's not as deep as Minecraft. A little bit of that. And the survival element where, you go hungry and you keep your upkeep, or at nighttime, the temperature drops and get very cold, so you need to build a fire. We took some of the elements of the survival from like Don't Starve. So it's really a mixture of like a lot of different games that are actually quite different, but we take elements from it and then put it into our game.
Yeah, I also always like to ask what makes you really proud, like when you look at a product, like you're like, oh, this we really implemented very well. What would that be?
I think there's two things. First is just handling a game of that scope. It's not an easy game to make for just several people. With a 7-man team. The scope of it is actually much bigger than we anticipated, which is, it can be good and could be bad. That does cause some delay on our part in terms of production, and that's the challenge. One of it is the scope of itself. So the second aspect of what I'm quite proud of is the controls, right? So when you're dealing with RTS game on the PC, you got a keyboard, you got a mouse, you got hotkeys, and you can control a lot of units at once. And for us, it's like, how do you translate that into mobile or a handheld device where you only have limited screen real estate, you don't have a mouse, you don't have all these commands. So what we did was we kind of do this tap and slide gesture where you can, if you do a loop, you can highlight all your characters at once. You can tap them individually, or two tap, multi-touch. You can do two players, like two characters. We also have a base where we're trying to map some of the main functions onto one side of the right side of the screen, so you can actually do many things at once and try to multitask within a simple tap and slide swipe gesture. So we did a lot of prototypes for that. I think we did like 5 or 6 prototypes of how we managed the control scheme, and our team's quite proud that we kind of made a system basically from scratch that can deal with a lot of the controls we need in the game.
Controls are really good, but I really noted that there was no mini-map. Like, was there a reason for it?
Oh, there's a huge debate on that. So for mini-maps, so we did a lot of play testing, and so it works on the PC because you got a large screen, you can have the mini-map up top, but with the phone where it's literally just 16:9 aspect ratio or whatever, you don't get a lot of tall screen real estate, right? Mm-hmm. So if you put a mini map there, that covers at least like maybe 1/6 of your screen already, and having too small of a mini map is pointless, right? So we'd rather do that. We actually built in some of the things where if you're being attacked, or there's, some of your resources are done collecting, we actually would give you a voice prompt, like a mute or some type of prompt telling you
feedback.
that
color feedback. Yeah.
Yes. So that replaces some of the need for mini maps. And with Strange World, you actually, maximum amount of character you're controlling is just 4, plus your base and some little robots here and there. So it's not so much where you need to manage, jump back and forth between a lot of different bases. It's not like StarCraft where you're multi bases and you got to control all these micromanagement. So with that, we thought that the mini map could be, we could take it away to give more screen real estate to players. You can zoom out if you need. You can zoom out quite a bit in the game as well.
Mm-hmm.
That also minimizes the need for mini map. We had long discussions, and we tried a lot of different prototypes as well, with mini map, without mini map. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed also with the map is changing a lot when it's the nighttime, because then suddenly the map is not visible anymore, what you have discovered
so at
before.
night, yes, when at night, the visibility goes down significantly. We're trying to add that realism, more of like a survival game, where during the daytime you can explore, you're fine, you see a lot further ahead, but as nighttime comes, your visibility, minimizes unless you have like a campfire, which can extend your, it brightens up the area. Yeah, so we did add that to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different different visual stuff we've done. I don't remember if this current build has it, but before we actually added one where right now the game's played with landscape mode, right? I think one of the builds we do, if you rotate the game, it'll automatically, the whole UI switches to portrait.
Oh, I didn't try that.
Yeah,
even.
I don't know if this build has it. I can't quote me on it, but we've experimented with that. That was pretty cool, but I don't know if we cut that feature in the end, because with performance issues, when you rotate it, everything switches.
Mm-hmm.
Some devices might not be able, just switching back and forth might be very taxing on the battery life. Or I don't know if it made it to the final version. So you can tell, like, we played with a lot of different features. We did a lot of different play tests, with different, just orientation, mechanics and all that stuff.
Oh, but that makes it really good. I mean, that makes the product solid. I also like, because basically you get in the beginning 4 characters and like later on maybe a few more, but like, are they equal in strength?
No, just different skill sets. Each of them have their own
Is there also an inbuilt scarcity? Like, if it's scarce, then the character is better, or?
No, it's one of the differentiating factors is they each have their own unique super skill, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them have have a super shot. Another character has you can put a remote control detonation car, as like a little RC car. You can, and it'll, once you set it down, it'll run to the nearest enemy and explode. Some of them are quick healing. So we got a lot of different types of unique moves that are unique to each character, aside from their core skills as well. So we want to see what players what can do with it. Maybe different stage, different team build loadouts can give you different approach to playing. So hopefully as the game progresses over the next few months, as we start unlocking different characters for the within the game, we'll see what players can do with these characters.
I also wonder, like, often when you're like working on a project, you are like, wait, maybe I should have done something else. Like, what would you redo if you would redo the game?
I think we would focus the scope a little bit more, more tighter, in terms of when we started the game, the scope was quite big and quite large, and we worked on a lot of different things at once. I think if we focus the scope tighter, we can actually get some of the prototypes that we wanted to do earlier, so that what happened is there's a lot of trial and error. If we actually, did a little bit more prototyping for certain aspects of the game, I think we would have solved some of the issues that we had later down the line.
Some of the reactions on your game were basically that it was not really working on their device. Do you feel that you launched it too early on the mobile market, or what is your opinion about that?
So, it is quite a, it's a 3D game, and the maps are, there's enemies, there's several things going at once. And regarding like the device support, that's one of the difficulties when you're developing for the Android platform. It is very diversified. It is a lot of fragmentation. Not everyone's running the latest Android OS. And most of the devices that have problems are very low-end devices where they have probably less than 2 GB of RAM on their system, which like these days that have, but that's part of like being in a when you're launching it globally all at once, where not everyone is in a country that has they afford really high-end devices, right? Some of them are more the basic phones, and when they have that, that's when they bump into some of the problems. So to deal with it, we actually did two different you can scale down the graphics to a lower resolution graphics, and the frame rate would be a little bit more smoother. What else we did was before we had that on manual, so we wanted to give players better graphics at the start, right, to reflect what it looks like in the screenshots. But what happened is a lot of the low-end devices, it might not run, it might crash. Well, actually, it won't crash, but it'll run very slow. So what we did was, quickly patch the game. Was it detects how many gigabytes you have and what type of system you're running, and then we'll auto scale accordingly to the device. And once we had that, it was a bit better. But on on the iOS side, we don't really have that issue because there's only so many iPhones out there, right?
Yeah.
So, and and the rating shows, it reflects it. I think on iOS we're averaging like 4 point something across all the regions. Meanwhile, in Google Play we're like 3.7 or something now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, last time I looked was 3.2, so you're
yeah.
that
was the early phase of it. So there was two main issues regarding the rating. The first one was as you said, some of the systems that weren't running properly. So we actually fixed some of the issues quite early on. And second one was localization. So I guess another thing I think we should have done more was we should have localized the game into more languages. We kind of downplayed. We didn't expect the game to do as well in a lot of the European markets. So we currently the game supports English, and we also, of course, we're based in Hong Kong, so we have Chinese support. Released a version where we do have not full support, but at least the UI, a lot of the main core things that it is in the localized language, and we did have a prompt that says we're improving the localization as we're going, updating the game, and once that happened. I think players are quite reasonable these days. They do see that some of the reviews is like, oh, like from 1 star, and then they switch to 4 or 5. They're like, oh, I know it's not perfect translation. And with being indie team, we also got to pick and choose, right? So it'll be great if we can localize in like 30 languages, right? But we only within our scope or scale, we can't go and localize for every single language, and we have to see in the coming months or weeks which region is doing well and is popular, then we'll localize it.
So if I'm correctly, like you worked on this game for a year, and like you keep on working on it like
almost 2 years actually. Yeah, we'll keep working on it. So it's we're in a unique position where Kingsoft has given us, Season Games has been very, very kind to us and allowing us to explore, keep updating the game and explore, different aspects.
Because my channel is mostly for starting indie developers. Like, what would be your advice for starters out there?
So, we still consider ourselves indie, right? So, I think one of the most important things as indie is to know your limitations, right? Often, you try to shoot for the moon, right? You're trying to swing for the fences, build a huge game, but really know what your strengths are. Like if you're an indie team, if you're like a 2-man team, then you can only do so much, right? You can leverage off some people. You can have different, freelance workers that can help you, or friends who can help you make things. But in the end, you can only build as fast as how big your team is, right? So know your team, know what you're good at, what your weaknesses are, and try to play to your strengths, right? And and do some research on what game you're gonna make before you make it, and maybe even like do some prototype. Make sure the game mechanic itself from a prototype phase, you can already kind of see if it's fun or not. Because in the end, we're making games, right? So it has to be fun. I can make this doesn't just apply to indie, but like all game developers, right? You can have the most awesome concept in the world, but when execution is key, and it comes out, it's not fun. I don't care how nice the art is. I don't care if you spend millions on on shaders or whatever, and you got the most coolest mechanics, but like if it's not fun, it's not fun, right? So of course each genre is different, and you can't appease all the gamers out there. There's going to be players that would love it, there's going to be players that hate it, and that's part of making games, right? But do early on, pinpoint what's fun about your game and develop your whole game around that.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice on that regard.
And just and don't be afraid to kill it, like kill a prototype. If this direction doesn't work, if it doesn't work, like if the retention's not there, or people, or if it doesn't work, or you're not even testing, internally testing, like something doesn't click, it's not work. Oh, let's spend another 2 months working on it. It's better off you be honest with yourself, scrap the whole thing, and just break it down for parts and see what works within that. Okay, all right, so I got this whole prototype done. This doesn't work, but hey, this part is actually pretty good. So let's take that out and see, is there anything worthwhile I can still within the scope of a game, take that and make it into a game.
So I think you kill quite a lot of darlings, right? What was your painful darling to kill?
It was probably the continuous maps, I guess. So we wanted to build one continuous huge world where you can keep on exploring. We try to do that, but with the current technology we have, just on mobile, it doesn't perform that well when you have such a large map. Also, the level design, it's a lot more complicated when you have to circle back, or you come around, or you're doing all these. We just found out it's a little bit easier if we control the maps to just a small island instead of a huge continent. And then as you progress through the acts, you can go to different continents or different maps and keep going instead of this one unified open world, right? Yeah, that was one thing that we had to kill, because it was really tough to do.
It was just too big.
Yeah, it was just too big. Maybe with a 30-man, 50-man team, we can do that, but with 7 guys, that's not gonna happen. And we had to be really honest with ourselves. And we had procedure. We're like, oh, let's try procedurally generated maps, right? Then we can save time on doing it. But we tried that, and there's a lot of issues with that too. Once you get into procedurally generated maps. So we had to kill that as well. So so we killed that. Yeah.
Well, maybe you find a way to fix it in other ways. I mean, I think it's good the way it is. Yeah, I think this is a more complicated question. How do you feel because the mobile phone market, you really need to offer something free to really ask for something. Did you kind of had a problem with that? Providing it for free, but still asking for purchases in the app, or how did your team approach that?
I don't really have. I know there's a debate on if you really want to make, some indies might go, oh, let's make a premium game so that we can have a fully realized type of world where we don't force players to do microtransactions or keep the game. I think it works for certain games. I think it does work for certain games. Where if it's a very story-driven game, or a game where it has only a very limited amount of gameplay, it's like a puzzle game. You're meant to finish it in 2 hours. There's not a lot of replayability. Then I think it makes sense to make it into a premium game where you buy it and you play it, right? But at the same time, there are certain games where in-app purchases. I think most players are willing, or they understand it's part of being a mobile gamer now, right? There is going to be in-app purchases. There's going to be in-app ads. In a way, there's going to be paywall. But I think if you implement those wisely and within reason, I think players will be okay with it. Like that's why, like, I'm not opposed to putting, rewarded videos into the games because, not everyone can afford it or willing to pay, right? So if you're willing to watch an ad, we'll give you something for it, and it'll help us monetize as well the game. And also from a developer's point of view, you put an IAP in there. If your game is trash, people will not pay. Very simple, right? Or it's not fun, they will not pay. If they're paying for your in-app purchases, it often means that, hey, you're providing, a value. You're providing content that they like, and they're willing to pay for it, right? So, don't be too afraid of putting in, monetization or IP into it, and don't put it in too late. Don't go. It's not something you can slap on last minute. Oh, now I have this game. How do I? Oh, it's free, but how do I make money for it? Oh, let's put a little bit of IP in it. You should have an overall map of what your IP is and how can you naturally or more organically integrate it into your whole game loop, so that you can monetize from the game. It's great making a game. It's I think most indie developers, they're making a game just because they're passionate about making games, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you still have to pay the bills, especially like
passion
for my
you can't
company.
eat.
Yeah, you
Only
can't eat
passion fruit.
Yeah.
So
like yeah, and like I'm I employ staff as well, right? I have developers, I have artists that's under me, and for me, it's like they spend, they're very passionate as well, and I want to make sure they get a salary, they can go home, they have a good standard of living, so they can come back and have more passion to make more games, right? So that's why it has to be sustainable, and it's one of the things where in a way, that's the business side, okay? And often the business side of indie games is always kind of like a taboo. You don't really want to deal with it. But if you want to make games for the long run and you want to be a successful game developer, especially for mobile, that's a side that you have to face, and you try to make it reasonable so players can have what they want, and we can earn a living from it, right?
Yeah, I think it's very good, and I think like I try to like talk also about like this little taboos, like because I mean we should talk about it, because you can't eat only out of passion. So yeah, we should find a way to make everyone happy.
Makes sense, right? Yeah. So if you put a paywall at every stage, and then your IAP is ridiculous, of course, it's not gonna make sense. But like if your item in the real world is a consumable, or it's something that will wear and tear, I think it's okay to make that IP has a wear and tear, right? Like it's not just buy once and you keep it forever. Say if you're building a fishing game and I'm buying bait, once you eat the bait, the fish eats the bait, then it makes sense to buy more bait, right? It's not like an infinite bait. So I think most people will be fine with that. But as long as it's within reason and it's integrated into your game organically and it makes sense from a gamer's perspective and from your own perspective, I think that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very good advice. Do you have something, your last wisdom that you want to share with us?
Okay, so the game, it's I'm sure like a lot of indie developers can understand and can relate, is that when you make a game, it's like your baby, right? You try to make the best out of it, and when you launch it, then that's when all the reviews come in. And I think one of the things that I want to share is like don't take those reviews too personally. Because I've made enough games now, so I got like 6-7 games under my belt. The first time I made a game, like someone gave me 1 star, I'm like on the reviews like, why are you giving me 1 star, right? How much time we spent on this, you don't even understand, right? And then, or they're like, oh, this is just a clone game, or whatever. This is not a clone, we built it from scratch, or things like that. And don't take it too personally, because players are players. They don't understand that there's actually behind the game, there's a whole team that works on it.
Mm-hmm.
And not every team is backed by a big company or have a lot of resources, right? Sometimes you're talking about just a single guy making a game or 3 guys making a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the same time, don't expect players to understand. Don't go, oh, it's only me making the game, right? So you better like it because it's just me. That's not a selling point, right? Just one man making a game or 3-man team making a game is not a selling point, And even being, I'm indie, indie means, yeah, you're independent, but it doesn't mean that, expect the quality to drop or something, right? Because players, they're gonna come in, especially now that, mobile games has been on the market for like more than 10 years now, like around 10 years now.
Yeah.
So it's a very mature market. Players come in with a lot of expectations. So, you still have to step up, right? Even if you're indie, I'm not saying that you have to have like killer graphics or you got to have like hyper photorealistic, look or but just be true to yourself. If art is not your strong suit, then pick a type of style that people will see, oh, okay, this is unique, it's different. It's not, indie doesn't mean like low poly or like very simplistic type of graphics, right? Or the gameplay has to be very simple. Within the confines of what an indie developer has, you can still find innovation within that. I think that's important. And just take it at your own pace, right? And try to block out as much noise as possible. Yeah. Unless it's about something that's critical, right? Like if it's a bug, then yeah, of course you have to fix it. But often there's some very subjective type of reviews. Then take the good ones with the bad. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you're doing very, very well. I mean, I think it's a very solid game.
We're okay. Yeah. So, we're fortunate. We started in 2014. It's not the beginning of mobile gaming, but we still got in relatively early. So we've had some luck as well. We're very fortunate, and I'm very fortunate that I have such a solid team. A bunch of guys that I've been working with. And they really brought a lot of just a lot of hard work and effort and inspiration into our games.
So basically, your team sounds like a bunch of friends, like in the attic, or is that not how it looks like?
Well, some of them are like ex-colleagues, from another game company, and then some of them we've known each other for a while, so that we're still really we're tight knit. So I'm quite proud that up before this year, we haven't had anyone leave, like quit our company. Yeah, we had like 0
You're
turnovers
a good boss.
from 2014. Yeah, I'm proud of that. And the only reason one of our guys left was because he wanted to immigrate. He wanted to he was studying. He wants to go back to school. So he went to Canada, and he says he's immigrating with his family and he's gonna study there. And then I'm like, that's fine, right? I want him to be happy, and I want him to to take his next step in life. And I think I did my job as a boss to see him like aspiring to do more, right? So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah,
thank you very much for all your wisdom. And well, I'm sure that people can easily find the game on the mobile phone. So and I would say check out. And also, if you guys still have some questions for Edward Lee, please leave some in the comments, then we will cover them over it. Thank you very much for attending this.
And if you like this channel, remember to like and subscribe as well.
Thank you. See you in the next one.
I always wanted to say that. Because I don't have a YouTube channel, but yeah, like and subscribe, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yes.